just what my career needed, you know? I was at the top, and then Catwoman just plummeted me to the bottom.
You were going to live completely separate lives.
Yes.
It was not a divorce on paper,
right,
but it was a divorce.
These were the faces that captivated millions, the stars who seemed larger than life. In the 80s and 90s, these black actresses dominated headlines, red carpets, and the silver screen. But time changes everything. Some reinvented themselves against all odds. Others vanished from the spotlight without a trace. And a few found themselves at the center of scandals that shocked Hollywood. From extraordinary comebacks to heartbreaking downfalls, these are the 20 most beautiful black actresses you can't recognize today. Number 20, Angela Bassett. In 1993, Angela Bassett didn't just play Tina Turner. She became her. She dropped weight, trained her body into a dancer's shape, and threw herself into brutal scenes of abuse opposite Lawrence Fishburne, so the pain on screen would feel real. Audiences walked out of What's Love Got to Do with It shaken. Critics were certain they had just watched the performance of the year. Then Oscar night came, and the trophy went to Holly Hunter for The Piano. Bassett smiled through it. The bigger blow was still coming. Within months, the offers stopped. The blockbuster scripts that should have flooded in after a performance like that simply never arrived. The reason was an open secret in the industry. She had refused to play the love interest of a white leading man, a quiet act of self-respect that Hollywood treated as defiance. In an era when those racial lines were still rigidly drawn, saying no cost her years of prime opportunity, she refused to fade out. In 1995, she came back swinging with Waiting to Exhale, a hit that pulled in more than $81 million and gave the world that unforgettable image of a woman setting her cheating husband's car ablaze. 3 decades later, the same industry that had iced her out had no choice but to bow. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever earned her an Oscar nomination as Queen Ramonda, a first ever for a performer in a Marvel film, and she took home the Golden Globe. The woman they tried to sideline outlasted every gatekeeper who doubted her. Number 19, Tisha Campbell. At the height of Martin, Tisha Campbell did something almost nobody in her position would dare. She walked off one of the most popular sitcoms on television. As Gina, she was beamed into millions of homes every week, a star at the peak of her powers. Then, during the show's 5th season, she was gone. The reason wasn't a better offer. She had sued co-star Martin Lawrence, alleging harassment and verbal abuse, and refused to keep working beside him. The case settled out of court. She returned only for the 2-part finale, filming her scenes apart from him entirely. She didn't disappear. She rebuilt with a long run on My Wife and Kids, and for a while the story looked like it had a clean ending. It didn't. The real collapse was still years away. In 2016, she and her husband, Dwayne Martin, filed for bankruptcy, buried under a reported $15 million in debt against only about $300,000 in assets. The case dragged on for nearly a decade, snarled in unpaid taxes and accusations that money had been hidden from the court and wasn't closed out until 2024. The marriage broke under the same weight. She filed for divorce in 2018, accusing her husband of emotional abuse and saying she had been financially controlled, left without a dollar of her own. There were stretches afterward, she later admitted, when she had as little as $21 to her name, scraping to put toys under the tree for her kids. She started over from nothing a second time, picking up roles in Dr. Ken and Outmatched and clawing her footing back. By 2022, she had even made peace with the past, joining the Martin reunion. She turned the rest into purpose, becoming an advocate for women trapped in financial abuse. Twice, the spotlight tried to bury her. Twice, she dug herself out. Number 18, Felicia Rashad. The whole country watched Felicia Rashad get proposed to. On Thanksgiving Day in 1985, during a nationally televised football game, former NFL star turned commentator Ahmad Rashad popped the question on air. She said yes instantly, and America swooned. To millions, she was already the perfect woman, the wise and elegant Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show. Now she had the fairy tale romance to match the image. The wedding drew Hollywood names and sports legends. Nobody saw the cracks underneath. By the late 90s, the distance had grown. Ahmad spent most of his time on the road for work, while Felicia held down their home and her career. Whispers followed him, talk of younger women and shady connections in the sports world. None of it was ever proven, but the rumors did their damage. In 2001, she filed for divorce, ending 16 years of marriage. The official reason was never spelled out, though those close to the couple pointed to infidelity. She never spoke poorly of him. In a rare, unguarded moment, she offered just a few words. "Love isn't always what we think it is." Then she poured herself back into her craft. In 2004, she became the first black woman to win a Tony Award for Best Actress in a Play. By 2021, she was named Dean of the College of Fine Arts at Howard University. The marriage ended, but her legacy only grew taller. Number 17. Alfre Woodard. There are performances so good that the lack of a nomination becomes a scandal. Alfre Woodard gave one of those in 1992. In Passion Fish, she played Chantel, a recovering addict trying to stitch her life back together, and she did it with such raw control that critics ran out of superlatives. The New York Times called it a masterclass. Roger Ebert all but guaranteed an Oscar nomination. Then the Academy announced its list, and her name was missing. The film earned 2 nominations. The woman who had given it its heartbeat got nothing. The backlash was loud. Critics accused the Academy of robbing her. The Los Angeles Times branded it the biggest snub of the year. Peers spoke up on her behalf, insisting she was a legend the industry refused to honor. The Academy, as it tends to do, said nothing. No explanation ever came. Woodard didn't wait around for an apology. She turned down the flat, stereotyped roles handed to black actresses and chose work with weight instead, landing a 4th Emmy for Miss Evers' Boys in 1997 and continuing to take parts that mattered. Over a career stretching past 100 roles, with 4 Emmys and a Golden Globe to her name, she built something no statuette could measure. She never got the Oscar. She became a legend anyway. Number 16. Halle Berry. A golden statue was supposed to be the beginning. When Halle Berry stood shaking and crying on that stage in 2002, she had just become the first black woman to win Best Actress at the Academy Awards. Critics called her the future of Hollywood. Then, faster than anyone imagined, the future collapsed. In 2004, she signed on for Catwoman, a film built to launch a franchise. The budget swelled past $100 million. The movie limped to roughly $82 million worldwide and was savaged by everyone who saw it. Worse came the humiliation that no Oscar winner had swallowed so quickly. She won the Razzie for Worst Actress, and in a move that stunned everyone, she showed up to accept it in person, holding her real Oscar in one hand and laughing at herself before the world could. The prestige scripts dried up after that, but she refused to disappear, fighting back with The Call in 2013, drawing blood in John Wick, Chapter 3 in 2019, and directing herself in Bruised in 2021. She never fully recaptured that one shining night, but she made sure the fall didn't get the last word. Number 15. Nia Long. By the time the scandal hit, Nia Long had already spent 3 decades as one of the most beloved faces in black cinema. She broke through as Brandy in Boys in the Hood in 1991, won over a generation as Lisa on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and stacked up classics through the 90s with Friday, Love Jones, and Soul Food. She kept reinventing herself, anchoring the Best Man films, earning recognition on Third Watch, and later moving into producing. She was talent, beauty, and staying power all at once. Then her private life became national news against her will. She had built something real with Ime Udoka over more than a decade. They started dating in 2010, welcomed a son in 2011, got engaged in 2015, and stood as a power couple admired across Hollywood and the sports world. Then, in September 2022, the news broke that Udoka, by then head coach of the Boston Celtics, had carried on an affair with a female staffer inside the organization, a violation of team policy that got him suspended for the entire season before the Celtics cut ties for good. The blow landed hardest on Long, who knew nothing while the team quietly investigated for months. Worse, the story was leaked to the press by the organization itself, something she later described as a gut punch. The pain of a private betrayal turned into a public spectacle she never asked for. Humiliated and dragged into a scandal that was never hers, she cut ties, packed up, and left Boston with their son to escape the media swarm. She chose to rise instead of crumble. In 2023, she returned to screens in Netflix's You People alongside Eddie Murphy, sending a clear message that no betrayal was going to define her. Number 14. Vivica A. Fox. Vivica A. Fox had Hollywood in her hands after Independence Day and Kill Bill, and then she fell for the wrong man at the wrong time. In 2003, she and rapper 50 Cent became one of the hottest couples around. until the romance curdled into a public feud that dragged on for more than 10 years. He mocked her as obsessive. She fired back without mercy. It became one of the ugliest celebrity clashes of its era. The trouble didn't stay in her love life. In 2007, a massive tax lawsuit hit, and a run of failed projects pushed her to the edge of bankruptcy. The former A-lister sold her multi-million-dollar home and took small roles just to keep going. She refused to stay down. She rebuilt through reality television, wrote a memoir airing out the chaos, and reinvented herself as a producer and director. Number 13. Taraji P. Henson. Taraji P. Henson learned early how cruel life could be. In the 90s, pregnant at 26 with her first love, William Johnson, she pictured a future for the three of them. Years later, when their son Marcel was still a boy, William was murdered on the streets of Washington, D.C., and she was left to raise their child alone, grieving and broke, clawing for a foothold in Hollywood. She climbed anyway. Hustle and Flow brought her notice in 2005. An Oscar nomination followed for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and Empire made her a global star as Cookie Lion. But the grief was only the first fight. The longer one, still going, is over money and over how little Hollywood pays black women for the same work. The numbers tell the story she refuses to soften. For Benjamin Button, the role that earned her an Oscar nomination, she was third on the call sheet alongside Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett, and she asked for $500,000. The first offer was $100,000. She settled for $150,000. She has always said she never wanted a cent of her co-star's pay, only a fraction of it, and was treated as if even that was greedy. What enrages her most is the reset. Every time she breaks a barrier or earns another nomination, she walks into the next negotiation back at the bottom, as if the work never happened. She hadn't seen a real raise since 2018's Proud Mary, forever fighting just to match what she made last time. It nearly cost her the color purple in 2023. She came close to walking away over the pay, then stayed for the younger woman beside her, asking who would make it easier for Fantasia Barrino and Danielle Brooks if she didn't take the stand. During the press run, she broke down on camera and laid out the math few stars say out loud. When people hear that an actor made $10 million, that figure is a fantasy. Roughly half goes to taxes. Her team takes 30% of the gross on top, and that is why she has to keep working just to stay ahead. The math, as she put it, isn't mathing. It pushed her to the edge of quitting. She stayed anyway. Her grief made her resilient. Number 12. Thandiwe Newton. Thandiwe Newton was a teenager, fresh and unknown, when the film industry showed her its ugliest face. During one of her first projects, a director used the cover of a so-called necessary shot to force her to strip and filmed close-ups of her body with no legitimate reason for any of it. She was terrified and powerless. He had everything, and she had nothing. Worse still, he kept the footage and bragged about it to colleagues, turning her humiliation into a private joke passed around among men who held the keys to her career. The damage went deep. She developed an eating disorder, came to despise her own body, and lost trust in the very industry she was trying to break into. For years, she was handed shallow roles, valued only as something to look at, so she stayed quiet. Even her husband didn't know the full truth. The power around her was simply too large to challenge. Then the #MeToo movement cracked everything open. After more than 2 decades of carrying it alone, Newton finally spoke, naming the rot at the center of Hollywood and refusing to protect the man who had hurt her. The backlash was real, a mix of support and doubt and outright attacks, but she didn't retreat. She turned the pain into purpose, building awareness campaigns and teaching young actors how to guard themselves. Across films like Crash, Mission Impossible 2, and the series Westworld, she had already proven her talent. Now she proved something harder, that a victim could become a leader. Number 11. Rosario Dawson. Rosario Dawson has played plenty of tough characters in Sin City, Rent, and Daredevil, but the most heroic thing she ever did happened off camera, in her own home. In 2014, her personal assistant suddenly crumpled to the floor. No breath, no response. A stroke was pulling the woman under right in front of her, and there was no time to think. Dawson didn't freeze. She called 911, described the scene with a steady voice, then dropped down and started CPR rather than wait for the ambulance. 1 minute, 2, 3, her own arms burning, the pulse fading under her hands, and still she kept going. When paramedics arrived, the verdict was blunt. Without that immediate CPR, the woman might not have lived. It fit a pattern that runs through her whole life. Since the early 2000s, she has thrown herself into relief work and community causes, becoming a leading face of Voto Latino to give Latino communities a real voice in politics. She has marched for human rights and been arrested more than once for it, including during a 2016 protest in Washington over money in politics. She never hid from those moments. Her life keeps proving the same thing, that she fights for what is right, whether a camera is rolling or not. Number 10. Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington was told in plain words that she was the wrong kind of leading woman. In the early 2000s, after gaining notice in Ray and the Last King of Scotland, she ran into a wall. Directors asked her to soften her voice, change her look, and even her skin tone. Some producers told her flatly she would never make it unless she remade herself. Many actors would have bent. She refused. In 2012, she detonated that ceiling with Olivia Pope in Scandal. The show became a phenomenon, drawing millions per episode, and Washington became the first black woman to headline a network drama in nearly 40 years. The nominations piled up, but power made her a target. When she began speaking openly about injustice in the industry, the knives came out. Stories appeared painting her as difficult, as trouble on set. False whispers meant to shrink her back down to a manageable size. She wouldn't be managed. She launched her own production company, choosing her own projects and pulling other black artists onto the screen with her. In 2016, she produced Confirmation, built around a landmark harassment case. By 2020, she was one of the most influential black actresses working, with a fortune of over $50 million and a voice in movements like Time's Up. They tried to quiet her. She got louder, and the industry had to listen. Number 9. Kim Fields. Kim Fields was the golden girl of 80s television, beloved as Tootie on The Facts of Life across its 9-year run. The trouble started the moment it ended in 1988. Directors turned her away. Audiences only wanted the little girl on roller skates, not the young woman she had become. Nobody, it seemed, would let Kim Fields grow up. She lived off her savings and watched the spotlight drift away, then left Hollywood entirely and went back to college. Just as she seemed gone for good, Living Single revived her in 1993 and handed back her fame. But when that show wrapped, she fell into another void. A marriage ended in the mid-90s. Her career lost its compass, and she slipped out of view a second time. The comeback came in 2015 with The Real Housewives of Atlanta, a single season that was enough to put her back on the map. Dancing with the Stars followed in 2016, and she has stayed busy ever since, including a long run directing television. The girl they refused to let mature finally got to define herself on her own terms. Number 8. Robin Givens. Robin Givens was beauty and brains in 80s Hollywood, the bright star of Head of the Class, until she married the most feared man in sports and watched her whole life cave in. She met Mike Tyson in 1987, the volatile, fabulously wealthy boxing champion, and within months, they were married. Behind the glamour was a nightmare. She would later describe a household ruled by violence, abuse so severe it included a miscarriage. Terrified, she did the unthinkable. Sitting beside Tyson during a live television interview in 1988, she described their marriage as torment, calling it sheer hell, with a national audience watching. The country was stunned, but instead of protection, she got punishment. She was branded a gold digger, mocked, and quietly blacklisted by an industry that sided with the famous man. The label clung to her for years, and the glory she had built was hard to reclaim. Yet over time, the story has been re-examined, and her early courage in naming abuse on live television looks far braver now than it was treated then. She spoke a truth that cost her dearly, and she survived it. Number 7. Shari Headley. Shari Headley charmed the world in 1988 as Princess Lisa in Coming to America, the kind of breakout that promises a glittering future. Her real life refused to follow the script. In 1993, when the hip-hop duo Kid and Play were at their peak, she married Christopher Play Martin, and the two looked like a perfect match. A year later, she discovered he was cheating. What followed was a stretch of fighting and hurt that ended in divorce in 1985. The cost was steep. Hollywood turned cold. Her career sank, and she found herself facing financial ruin while raising a child largely on her own. For roughly 2 decades, she fought to climb back, the early promise of her career feeling further away each year. She finally returned to the role that made her, appearing in Coming to America in 2021, more than 30 years after the original. The shine of her early stardom may have faded, but she outlasted the heartbreak that nearly ended her. Number 6. Jasmine Guy. Jasmine Guy was the dazzling Whitley Gilbert on a different world, a beloved star with millions of fans through the late 80s and into the 90s. The glamour hid a life that was quietly coming undone. In 1998, she married businessman Terrence Duckett, and with a daughter born the next year, the picture looked complete. A few years later, she discovered his infidelity, and the marriage ended in 2008. The fallout was financial as well as emotional. Her ex-husband didn't provide support, and she sank into debt. In 2012, she filed for bankruptcy, owing more than $123,000, a brutal fall for a woman who had once been a sitcom queen. She refused to let that be the end. She returned to screens with roles in The Vampire Diaries and other work, and channeled her energy into activism, fighting for the rights of black artists. The debt was real, but so was her determination, and the second outlasted the first. Number 5. Dawnn Lewis. Dawnn Lewis won audiences as Jaleesa Vinson on A Different World, a gifted actress with a powerful voice who also carved out a career in voiceover work. Then came a decision that quietly derailed her. In 1992, with her career climbing, she left A Different World to join Hangin' with Mr. Cooper. The new show never lived up to the promise, and her momentum stalled. A deeper blow came in 2004 when she married former NBA player Johnny Newman. Just 2 years later, the marriage ended amid allegations of emotional abuse, and she fell into a crisis, her faith in love badly shaken. The recovery took more than a decade. She found her way back the same way she started, through her voice. She made an impact in Star Trek, Lower Deck, and continued building a steady, lasting career in animation. The marriage wounded her and the wrong career turn slowed her, but neither one stopped her for good. Number 4. Mo'Nique. Mo'Nique built her name on bold, fearless comedy, but underneath the laughter was a childhood few people knew about. When she was just 7, she was abused by her older brother, a wound that haunted her for years. She didn't find the courage to speak about it publicly until 2008. By then, she was famous from The Parkers, and the next year she stunned audiences with Precious, a small film that grossed far beyond its budget and won her the 2010 Oscar. The triumph turned into a new ordeal. She was effectively blacklisted for refusing to play by Hollywood's unwritten rules, frozen out of projects for more than a decade in a standoff she never backed down from. Many would have gone quiet to save their careers. She kept naming what had happened to her. The vindication came eventually. In 2022, she signed a stand-up special with Netflix, then starred in The Reading and reunited with director Lee Daniels for The Deliverance. Number 3. Jada Pinkett Smith. In October 2023, Jada Pinkett Smith dropped a bombshell that rewrote everything people thought they understood about one of Hollywood's most famous couples. She revealed that she and Will Smith had been separated since 2016, 7 years of appearing side by side at premieres and ceremonies while privately living apart. They had married in 1997, built the image of a flawless family, and kept the truth sealed. The revelation reframed the most infamous moment of their public lives. At the 2022 Oscars, after Chris Rock joked about Jada, Will stormed the stage and slapped him on live television. Once the separation came out, people asked why a man no longer truly in the marriage had reacted so fiercely. 3 years earlier, she had already stirred a storm by admitting an entanglement with a younger singer. Now, even after confirming the split, she insists they have no plans to divorce, that they remain a family in a different shape. Number 2. Jackée Harry. Jackée Harry was a force in the 80s and 90s, unforgettable as Sandra Clark on 227 and later as Lisa Landry on Sister Sister. She made history as the first black woman to win an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series in 1987. Behind the laughs, her personal life was a tangle of scandal. In the late 90s, she married celebrity hairstylist Elgin Charles, and what looked like a perfect match soon became filled with rumors. The whispers ran both ways. She was rumored to be involved with a younger actor while he was tied to his own string of murky relationships. The marriage soured into a swamp of mutual betrayal and ended bitterly in 2003. She didn't let it topple her. She kept working, returned to the screen, and reminded everyone she was still one of Hollywood's sharpest comedic talents. The marriage failed, but the legend she had built carried on. Number 1. Lynn Whitfield. Lynn Whitfield bet her whole career on one role, and the bet paid off in the cruelest way. To play Josephine Baker in the 1991 television film, she shed more than 30 pounds, drilled herself through grueling 1920s cabaret routines, and agreed to a nude scene that was genuinely dangerous for a black actress of that era. The performance made her a sensation. She won an Emmy and was suddenly mentioned alongside legends like Lena Horne and Diane Carroll. Then the doors slammed shut. Instead of leading to bigger films, the triumph seemed to make Hollywood nervous. She was too striking, too commanding, too magnetic to be slotted into the small, submissive roles the industry kept reserving for black women. When she refused to shrink herself, the work dried up. The town that had just crowned her quietly pushed her out. She didn't break. She moved to television, where she could control more of her own fate. She shone in Eve's Bayou in 1997 and reigned for years on Greenleaf. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.